If you have ever looked at a Power BI report and wondered why the same number changes depending on where it sits on the page, let's say a card here says one thing and a table says another thing, you are about to understand why. Today is not just about writing DAX from scratch, it's about something useful. Learning to read any Power BI report and predict what a number will show before you even click on anything. That skill alone will make you faster and more confident than half of the people that use Power BI right now. So let's open a report and I will show you exactly what is happening behind the scenes. Let's start with a row context because it is the simpler idea. Look at this table at the bottom. Every row here is complete. For example, you see date, you see product, you see region, salesperson, and the amount. When Power BI processes this table row by row, it knows exactly about the row it is currently looking at. That awareness is called row context. You do not build this yourself in a table visuals. Power BI creates it automatically as it lays out each row. Just know that this concept exists because in a moment I'm going to interact with something very different. If you see this card of total sales, it currently shows the total sales of all the region, every region combined, as you can see from the slicer. And now I'm going to click on East region. The number just changed now because the slicer applied a filter and now every visual on this page is connected to the region that is selected. This is the part that confuses people because this is nothing but called a filter context. Filter context is not something that you see directly, it is a condition applied behind the scenes and every visual responds to it based on what field it uses. This is the part I really want to pay attention to this dashboard because it's the moment filter context actually clicks for most people. So look at the matrix visual. Region is on the rows side where each row, that is east, west, north, has its own number next to it. And here is the key insight. With no slicer selection active right now, each row in this matrix is still creating its own independent filter context automatically. The east row is only filtered to see the east data, but the west row is only simultaneously filtered to see the west data. They are not affecting each other, and notice I did not touch any slicer to make this happen. The matrix creates this filter on its own just by having region in the rows. So if you can just click on the region here in the matrix, it automatically filters for east, and if I click on north, it automatically filters for north, and if I click on west, it automatically filters for west. This is completely different from a row context. Row context is Power BI moving through a table one row at a time, whereas filter context in a matrix is Power BI calculating the same measure under several different filtered conditions simultaneously and displaying them side by side, and this happens automatically before any slicer gets involved. Once you see a matrix and immediately think each cell has its own filter context, reading any Power BI report becomes dramatically very easier. Now let's see what happens when a slicer enter a picture. I'm going to click on East on this slicer. Now select only the East region. If you see, the card number shows only for the East sales because the slicer adds a page level filter, and watch the matrix. It also now only shows for the East row because slicer applied to every visual on the page by default, including the matrix. The slicer's filter context and the matrix own row by row filter context are now stacked on each top of each other. A slicer does not just affect one visual, it affects every visual that shares that field, layering its filter on top of whatever filter context already been existed. So once you know how to look for that layering, a confusion dashboard stops being confusing. Now let's look at how we could add a second layer of dimension. So now if I go to edit this dashboard and try to add product, let me drag in product into our matrix. As you can see, we see a plus sign under each of these region. Now when we go to the reading mode, save the file, Select all the visual. You can see there are a much second uh, dimension attached to the region. So if I expand this, East has its own breakdown by its product, that is laptop, keyboard, monitor, etc. Whereas the North has its own breakdown of keyboard, monitor, and West has its own breakdown of laptop and monitor. This right here shows that Power BI just tagged a second filter condition on top of the first, which automatically the moment I added a second field to the rows. This is the same idea scaling up on because one field in the row gives one layer of the filter context per row. Two fields give you two layers combined. So you can keep nesting fields and Power BI keeps creating more specific filter context for each combination and no extra formula or calculations required. So here is why this is not just a theory exercise. The most common support question I've seen from analysts in some version of my year to date number looks wrong or this total does not match what I expected. Almost every single time the actual cause is filter context problem, exactly like what we just looked at. A slicer stacking with a visual's own row level filter in a way person does not expect. So once you look at any report and immediately ask what filter context are layered on this specific number right now, such as slicer or a page filter or a visual level filter, and then the rows and the columns of the visual itself, you can stop guessing and start diagnosing in a better way. This is the actual skill that this concept gives you. So here is a mental model that I want you to leave with today. Every number on a Power BI report is the answer to a question. The filter context is what defines a question. Change the filter context by just clicking a slicer or by moving to a different cell in a matrix or by adding a field to a row or a column, and you are asking different questions, so naturally you get different answer. So next time you look at a confusing report and a number does not make sense, don't ask why this number is wrong. Ask instead what question is this specific visual actually asking right now. So in that way, a single shift in how you think about it solves most of the confusion. So if this helped you understand the concept between a filter context and a row context, please do subscribe. Next week I would go further into a couple of Power BI tutorials and how to make it more better understanding the concepts. So do drop a comment with the reports or dashboard that you're working right now. I read every comment and like to also reply back as soon as possible, and it helps me know exactly what people are working on and want my help on. So see you on Wednesday.